News Nation anchor Rudabeh Shabazi is live for us.
There were horns blaring pretty much 24/7. So you can imagine being someone who lives here or works here. That was recently shut down by an injunction by a judge. Some trucks don't have tires on them. Some of them have brake lines that have been cut. So you can imagine how difficult it will be if and when they're ever able to tow these trucks away.
Will it be devastating to the economy? What I want to ask is, are those mandates not devastating to our economy?
I can't go into restaurants, I can't go to movies, I can't go watch sporting events. It's not right. This is supposed to be a free country.
Ottawa police responding to more than 850 calls for service since the protests began.
We want these demonstrators to pick up, realize that their message has been heard, and go home to where they came from so that our citizens can have their city back.
Canadians are used to demonstrations. In fact, they encourage them. They have a long history of it. But this one feels different. Government officials calling this an occupation. We now know about at least 3 ports of entry between the U.S. and Canada that are affected. It's illegal to bring the truckers fuel because obviously they have an incentive to get them out of here because it's crippled Ottawa. But look at all the fuel cans here.
This pandemic has sucked for all Canadians. But Canadians know the way to get through it is to continue listening to science.
All of the businesses in this downtown core area are shut down because people simply can't get through. You can imagine all of this in Washington, D.C., outside the White House, outside the Supreme Court. You kind of get an idea of how impactful this is. Ottawa has about 1,200 police officers here. The police chief says that they would need an additional 1,800 on top of the other forces that are already here assisting in order to even attempt to move these big rigs out of here. General Motors on the Michigan side of the border has now had to cancel its second shift because of that disruption you just mentioned on the Ambassador Bridge.
So every hour is about $13.5 million.
One of the first casualties, international auto manufacturing company Stellantis, which employs 5,000 workers at the Windsor plant.
Today, we have seen riot police with guns walking down the streets. We also saw barricades being put up this morning outside the Parliament building. We can get through the crowd here, excuse me. There are trucks here with no tires. It's basically like people have set up camp in some instances and they plan to stay here for quite a while.
Jason Vanderweer hosts meetings with 20 truckers at a time in his vehicle.
There's nothing organized about it. It's just a grassroots thing where people are helping people and trying to get change, trying to get freedom.
They just go around and around and around, talking their horns. It's been, can't sleep at night. Like, it's nuts.
At night, fireworks, revving engines, and people in the streets keeping residents awake. During the day, keeping them from work.
I'm very grateful I live in a country where you can have freedom of speech and you can have a peaceful protest. It doesn't feel like that right now, and that makes me sad because I don't think it's upholding the values that Canadians hold dear.
What if they come with police and try to get you out with police?
I don't care. I got nothing to lose.
People also are frustrated that law enforcement has basically been letting this go on.
The so-called Freedom Convoy, holding the critical route of a quarter of trade between the U.S. and its neighbor to the north, hostage.
They absolutely have a right to protest and can do so somewhere where they're not blocking Canada's most important trade corridor with the United States.
They don't want to be there. Nobody wants to be here, but we need the government to come out and talk to them. We need to hear from them. We need to have discussions.
They say they just want the choice to not be vaccinated. But again, 90% of truckers in Canada have been vaccinated. The requirements are the same to come into Canada as they are to come into the United States. The Windsor border into Detroit has now asked for a court injunction to remove the demonstrators who have been hampering trade and North America's busiest border crossing for 4 days now, costing jobs, affecting the supply chain.
This restaurant used to be very full, very busy, but now we don't have much people at all. It's sad, but it's a reality.
The shows of defiance taking an undeniable toll on the economy. Protesters again shutting down the Ambassador Bridge in both directions today.
I think this is something we have to stick out, and our family is in complete agreement that, no matter what happens, we're behind find these men.
Ford, GM, Chrysler, Toyota, Honda, all having at least temporary disruptions or at times complete shutdowns of plants. And if you talk to some of the demonstrators here in Ottawa, they say that's the goal. It's been 2 weeks since the truckers took over Ottawa, the seat of Canada's government. Tonight it feels more festive, more like a party, and it's clear that more people are coming ahead of this weekend, even as temperatures drop. You hear the engines revving, the horns honking.
Waiting for badge numbers and names.
Officers hitting the streets, issuing nearly 2,000 tickets and making 25 arrests today.
We're going to get rid of a lot of lies and corruptions. Just like one of the presidents in the past from the U.S. has said, he's going to drain the swamp.
We've brought our children in our trucks for as long as we can remember. I don't feel that they're in any danger whatsoever.
Like, everybody's here struggling. Most of us don't have work. Most of us hitchhiked. Some of us drove. Like, we're all here for a better cause.
Today, the horns are still blaring here, even though that's now against the law because of an injunction. But today, there was also a logjam on the way to the airport. The protesters also clogging that route, and the 911 center and the non-emergency call center also clogged today, Marnie. Appears to be a normal street, even though it's barricaded at the bottom. But then turn around and look at this, and this gives you a really good idea of how the gridlock has just completely siphoned off the entire downtown area, which is also the seat of government in Canada, the capital city here. There now are emergency measures in place. The government's saying that vehicle seizures will be in effect. We have not seen any of that yet. In fact, we've seen it grow bigger, more and more people coming in.